Welcome, new and old friends. I just have a couple things to say, and then the stories will begin. Before you drift off into the dream realm, please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment. If you'd like to find out about my social links, my website, how to help the channel, check the description box. Now turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. It's time to dream. How the hell did that happen? By darknessstorytime. Hello everyone, my name is A, and I'm a 43-year-old man originally from Chicago, Illinois, living in Boston at the moment. I usually read these stories on Reddit and even narrate them, but never had an actual experience until now. I'm here to give you guys my first encounter dealing with the glitch in the Matrix. I'm a construction worker and pretty much a plumber by trade. I usually have a super early morning start. I remember one early October morning in 2023. I got up late, so I'm rushing to work. For context, I drive a shitbox car for work, and the radio had broke a week prior from this incident. So, I was using my JBL portable speaker to listen to music while heading to work. Now mind you, I have the speaker and water sitting on the passenger seat. I remember looking down at the digital clock on the radio for a split second to see the time when a guy out of nowhere merges into my lane without using his blinker before the light changed, causing me to abruptly slam on my brakes. Everything that was in the passenger seat ended up falling on the floor, which I watched and heard fall onto the floor when the car made a complete stop. I also tried to grab the water because I didn't want the water to spill all over the floor. Now, if everyone knows, the Poland Spring gallons of water have those flat caps that easily pop off, so that's why I wanted to grab it before it fell. At the time, I wasn't listening to any music. Mind you that to turn off the device, there's a little on and off switch on the back of the portable speaker. I always leave it off until I get onto the highway. Quick side note, the switch takes a bit of effort to switch on and off because it's fairly new. Anyways, after what felt like 3 minutes later, the light changes and I go a couple of blocks to jump onto the highway. Now I'm driving and feeling down on the passenger floor to pick up the water, the speaker, and everything that fell. I'm gripping the wheel with my eyes focused on the road. I'm still feeling on the floor, wondering why I can't find the speaker and a gallon of water. Tell me why I glance over at the seat. Both the gallon of water and the speaker are on the seat. Now remember, I tried to prevent the water from falling, but I didn't catch it in time. I never even touched either of them. So how the hell did they end up back on the seat? I'm not crazy, nor do I suffer any mental health issues, so for the life of me, I don't know how they ended up right back on the seat. To give insult to injury, the speaker blurred out connected when I knew that damn thing was switched off. I got to work and sat there for a moment trying to figure out how and why. So, till this very day, I cannot tell you what the hell happened. There's also a link in the description box / show notes if you guys are interested here in this narrator. Every year, on the anniversary of our son's disappearance, my husband and I return to the mountain where he was last seen to continue the search. My husband long ago stopped expecting to find anything, but I always take a few minutes to slip away and visit the big tree that he's been buried under. Glitch Replay by Anonymoose. Not sure how to classify this, but it's definitely one of the weirdest sets of experiences I've had, largely because my family experienced it as well. The first time it happened, or we noticed it happened, was about a year ago. My boyfriend and I were home alone. My family was supposed to be out for the next few hours, so we were just beginning intimate activities, when we heard them return, the door opening, loudly as always, and the muffled voices of my mom and brother. We leapt up and scrambled to throw on our clothes, super confused as to why they were home 4 hours early. A few minutes later, we headed downstairs. It was quiet. The noises had stopped, I don't know when. And I realized no one had returned. It was just silence. My partner and I were both promptly freaked out. We had both clearly heard them get home, heard them talking, the door opening and shutting. I told my mom about it the next day. About a month later, I was out for a walk. When I came back, my mom was a bit freaked out. She asked if I had come back and knocked at some point. No. Apparently she had heard heavy banging on the door. Loud enough she heard it from upstairs and came down to let me in, only for no one to be there. Keep in mind, we have a Ring doorbell. Anyone at the door, or any loud noises, would have picked up, which they were not. There were also multiple instances of us hearing knocking, to various degrees of intensity, only for no one to be there. Those would be easily to write off as maybe potential paranoia, but in many cases, my dog reacted as well and started barking, which he never does except when someone is at the door. The latest noticeable incident was about a week ago. I was at home alone doing schoolwork when I heard the doorknob shaking like it was being unlocked. Our door's been practically broken for the last few years and needs a lot of force to open. Oh, my mom's home early, but the shaking didn't stop. I snuck to the door and looked through the peephole. No one was there, but I could still hear it shaking. It was strong and clear enough. Someone had to be there. I worried someone might be trying to break in despite the Ring doorbell presence, maybe crouching out of sight of the peephole. I grabbed my phone, keypad ready to dial 911 if needed, and crept to the window in the side room where the front door was visible. No one. A few seconds later, it stopped. My family and I know our house. We've been here for the last 16 years. My mother is a single mom who only just returned to work this year, and I've been in online school for the last few years and stay almost entirely at home due to medical issues. We know our house and how it sounds. Everyone I tell these stories to frustratingly tells us that it's just the wind or the house settling, but it's not. It just isn't. It's very clearly the sound of a person or people. We know how our house sounds, and this isn't that. It doesn't feel malicious or unsettling necessarily. Even though it freaks us out, I don't think it's a ghost or something either. My mom certainly doesn't. But it's weird enough that even she's acknowledged the strangeness. It feels more like a time replay, if that makes any sense. Certainly Matrix glitchy in nature. I'm not sure. I'll try to get a video when it happens again, but it's hard to tell it's not real until you open the door to no one or come downstairs to an empty house. I know it's not the most insane story, but it's creepy to my family and I, and thank you for listening. Understandably, my loving family were a little concerned when I told them I need a routine operation to remove a tiny parasite worm from my brain. After the operation, I regained consciousness in a disposable test tube and discovered that I wasn't quite the person I thought I was. Instructions appeared out of nowhere by Lenny68. Alright, so this is a silly glitch. I just got into cold brew and found out here on Reddit that Trader Joe's used to make an instant cold brew. It's currently non-production, but a few people recommend a good sub. A few people know that there were no directions on the jar. I went to Amazon and read the reviews, and quite a number of the reviews said there were no instructions. When I got the jar, I looked all over the label and no instructions. I looked several times and saw what type of coffee beans it was made from, but not to the ratio powder to water. Foreshadowing, I mixed way too much coffee. I thought it was weird from them to not have instructions, so I went to the website, and again, no instructions. So a couple of weeks ago, I'm on Trader Joe's subreddit, and someone mentioned the instant cold brew again. I said I liked it, but I wish there were instructions. Someone said there are and told me the instructions are indeed there. I was like, well, there aren't any on mine. A lot of others said the same. I thought maybe they had a newer jar or something. Cut to today, I'm leaving for vacation this week, and something told me to grab the jar and put it in my purse because otherwise I'd forget it. I get it out of my desk drawer and look at the jar, and guess what I see? You guessed it, the instructions, plain as day. In fact, they were right above the blur about the type of beans they were. Those instructions were not there. I looked many times. I'm thinking maybe this is subliminal. Like, maybe because I read that the instructions were not there, my mind blocked out the whole thing. And then when someone said they were there, I could see the instructions. That or the multiverse is having a laugh at my expense. With a curt flourish, I signed my name on the dotted line, allowing the rich family to hunt me to my death in exchange for mine being given $10 million. When I was brought to the secluded grounds, the billionaire's son barely looked out from his phone before saying, "I don't want to do this today. Just make the dogs do it." Parallel Dimension by Almost-Jaded. I have a lot of weird things happen to me, some later explained and some not. But the all-time craziest was never explained, and it happened again tonight. And a friend said I should put it on Reddit into the sub, so here I am. The first time, 2006. I'm living in Henderson/Green Valley, southeast Las Vegas. I volunteered to pick up my friend's girlfriend from a party in North Las Vegas. He lost his driver's license a while back because drinking and driving is bad, okay? I don't know the North Town very well at this point in my Vegas experience, but I pick her up and drop her off many times. I know where I'm going. At one point in this journey, I'm northbound on Martin Luther King, need to turn left onto Cheyenne. Now, Martin Luther King and Cheyenne is a major intersection. A steepish hill, 4 to 6 lanes in both directions. There's a library there, hard to miss. And then I go to Craig Road, north of Cheyenne Road, and I never passed it. Annoyed, turned around, paid attention this time, got to Washington, well south of Cheyenne, never passed Cheyenne. What the fuck? Turned around again. Notice that the road signs are blue instead of green and smaller than the big green hanging light boxes that Vegas uses. Maybe North Vegas does it differently. Whatever, I'm running late now, and there's Craig Road again. What the actual fuck? The fourth time I drove back and forth between Craig and Washington, I called my friend. This is a different route than I usually take, but for fuck's sakes, I know my way around town. He tells me I'm an idiot. Just look for the library. I drive up to Craig's Road again. Cheyenne Road does not fucking exist. I turned around and go south. There's Washington. Never pass Cheyenne Road. Over it, take Washington out to I-15, go north, there's Cheyenne Road exit. Take exit, proceed west, and of course, I cross the intersection of Cheyenne and Martin Luther King. There's the library, and the signs are in big green boxy things as always. I was 3 hours late picking her up, and the total delay was about an hour. To this day, very few people believe me. I was even accused of picking her up on time and spending 3 hours of having intimacy with my best friend's girl, and that didn't happen. Nobody believes that I spent an hour driving up and down Martin Luther King Boulevard and showed up 3 hours late. To this day, if I'm late somewhere, one of my close friends will ask if the road signs were blue and laugh at me. Can't say I blame them. In between, this has happened again, but in small ways. I usually write it off as I zoned out or miss a turn. No major time loss or weird phenomenon that stands out. I don't claim they're reoccurrences. Tonight, back in December the 29th of 2017. I drive for Uber Eats in my off time. Stick to Henderson/Green Valley most of the time to avoid dropping in the Strip. I deliver to the neighborhoods known as Anthem and Seven Hills probably a dozen times a week or so. Anthem Highlands, Inspirita, whatever. Those areas if anyone reading this or listening is a local. Tonight I had to drop off in Anthem Highlands. Eastern Avenue southbound splits. You stay left if you want to go to Anthem, and at the fork, Eastern turns into Anthem Boulevard. If you stay right, Eastern gets downsides and winds its way to Seven Hills. To get to Anthem Highlands for this trip, I go left. Anthem Boulevard is 2 lanes in each direction, 45 miles per hour speed limit. The first intersection of note is Reunion Boulevard. It's a traffic light with a proper left turn lane. The second light is Anthem Club Drive. Same deal, but right now there's a bunch of crazy construction at that intersection. Has been for months. That all matters in a minute. I make my drop, no problem. I head back exactly the reverse way I came. Except now, what was supposed to be Anthem Boulevard is a single lane 35 miles per hour. I'm supposed to be on a 2-lane at 45 miles per hour. And I feel lost. But I'm going north, so I'll get where I'm going, whatever. Drive for what feels way too long. I don't see Anthem Club. After a few more minutes, I check my nav on my phone. It says I'm coming up on Reunion. That can't be. I passed no construction, no traffic lights. And it says I'm right on top of Reunion. But there's no stoplight. I see a cross street. Minor street, 3-way stop crossing the road I'm on. I read the small sign, Reunion. Instant flashbacks to the Martin Luther King/Cheyenne thing. I'm freaking out. I know I'm on Anthem Boulevard, but this isn't the Anthem Boulevard I know. The road takes a sharp left, I round the bend, and I'm out of northbound East Avenue in the far fast lane, exactly as it should be leaving Anthem. Everything looks normal. I look in my rearview mirror. It's the entrance of Anthem, pictured perfectly. Picture perfect and decidedly not where I just came from. No noticeable time loss this time. I honestly wonder if I turned around and spent an hour in the alternate Anthem, maybe I would have been able to measure it, or not. I wasn't going back. Took the rest of the night off, called some people, posted here. Sorry for the novel. Hope it was worth a listen. It's not fiction. When my little sister clawed at her throat and gasped for breath, I started Googling frantically. She still persisted after I shoved the Wikipedia page in her face and said, "It says here peanuts aren't nuts, they are legumes." I witnessed people frozen in time by Anonymoose. I'm really not sure where to talk about this, but my mind is absolutely blown by something I witnessed a few days ago. My brain simply can't make sense of what I saw. I had been working at a busy trade show for a few days, and the last day I picked up a van rental and was driving to the venue. Business as usual, and I finished a call with my boss as pulling up to the venue. The last stretch of road before the parking lot is typically very busy, with cars pulling up to drop off people and people walking across the road from surface-level parking lots. As I make one of two turns, I immediately see three businessmen frozen in place in the middle of the road crossing in front of me. They literally have zero motion, as if they were statues. Some had briefcases, others their suit jacket open, and one was visibly half turned around smiling as if he was laughing in the middle of a conversation. It was windy, yet no jacket moved. Those briefcases were suspended in air but never swung on their handles. The one guy smiling, gesturing back, had his legs open like the Beatles on the Abbey Road cover. It was so bizarre because around this frozen group of three, other cars were passing by and people already on the sidewalk were in motion. This felt like an eternity, but was probably within 4 seconds. Motion suddenly resumed on this group. It was like someone pressed play on a remote. They kept walking across the street to the venue. The guy who was turned around to someone resumed chatting it up with his colleagues as he crossed the street. Briefcases and jackets and clothes moved and shifted as expected. I was baffled. I had seen weird things like this posted on TikTok of birds frozen in air or ladies walking on a sidewalk that appeared to be glitched, and always assumed it to be a hoax or a clever editing. But once I saw this, my mind hasn't been the same since. I simply can't comprehend what I saw. Was I visualizing these people before they appeared at my destination when they resumed? Were they indeed frozen? Did anyone else see this happen? Was I simply too tired from working this trade show? And even if so, how did I see something frozen for so long before they essentially resumed motion? My head is spinning, kicking myself for not putting in a dash cam in the rental vehicle. Closest thing I can search that comes close would be this clip where a frozen lady resumes walking. In that clip, the same questions are brought up. Hair's not moving, the clothes are not flowing, even though that woman is in mid-stride. But with my experience, it was a group of 3 people, and all of them were held up in time until I drove close enough for them to resume motion. I'm interested if anyone has a similar experience or could know what this could mean. I'll also have a link to the video that OP was talking about in the description box for you guys. Your child seems perfectly fine. For an extra fee, we can make modifications like changing her eyes or hair color, things like that, said the doctor to my pregnant wife. How much will it cost to give her an illness that will make her dependent on us for her entire life? My wife asked. Small Kitchen, Big Problems by IndustryGuys. My kitchen is not large. There is a main island counter. Behind that is a sink and a prep counter. To the right is a small counter where I leave my coffee and coffee maker. My routine is set. After a full glass of water every morning, I start the coffee. I place 2 green tea bags in a red plastic cup that I let steep all morning, and that is my afternoon iced tea. This morning, I ripped open one green tea pouch, and in the canister I saw another tea bag already out of the pouch. I couldn't tell for sure that if the latter was green tea, as the tag was different. I thought I should open another green tea pouch just to be sure. I didn't have my glasses nearby, so I couldn't read the label. Eventually, I decided to put the 2 tea bags I had into the cup. The water in the electric pot was just about ready to boil. A minute or so later, it was ready, and I poured the hot water into the French press for 2 cups. One for me and one for my wife, who was milling about. I then went to pour the hot water into the plastic cup to make my tea. The cup was empty. No tea bags. The empty pouch from the first tea bag that I had opened was on the counter next to the cup. My wife says she didn't touch my tea or cup, and I'm confident she didn't. We looked in a couple of other cups in the kitchen, and they were all empty. We retraced my and her steps that took place in that few minutes I was preparing to start for my day. We emptied the garbage, which was already pretty empty because Tuesday is trash day. We spent an hour trying to find the 2 tea bags. No luck. I know I opened 1 tea pouch, and I'm sure that I combined it with the second because I thought quite a bit about whether it was green tea or another kind. We never found the tea bags. Either my mind is playing tricks on me, or there was a glitch in the matrix. I prefer to believe the latter because I have spent the past 6 hours frantically all over the former. I know that I had 2 tea bags in my hand, and I know it. Maybe I didn't put them in the plastic cup like I do every damn day. If I didn't, then where are they? It's a very small kitchen, and I have torn it apart looking for 2 loose tea bags. And no luck. The girl looked up at me from her hospital bed and said, "Thank you for saving me, doctor. I don't want to die anymore." My stomach sank with the news I had to come to bring her. She had taken too much, and now there was nothing anyone could do to save her from dying slowly over the next few days, while her organs shut down from the poison. Lowest stake glitch ever. Piece of bread. By No Dark 8446. My friend Layla, 27 female, and I, 34 female, were on a trip with a few other friends. The other friends were poking around a gift shop, but Layla wanted to smoke. I went outside with her. She was leaning against the wall of the building, and I was facing on the other side of the sidewalk so people could pass. Just to her left was a doorway to an apartment building. There were no windows above until the 2nd floor or next to it. There was a little decorative ledge, but there were those barbs on it. Are those there to keep birds from sitting/nesting there? I've never understood them. A guy with his hands in his pockets walks between us, and a moment later a half-eaten baguette falls onto the middle of the sidewalk with a thunk. It fell straight down in front of the doorway. Lyle and I just looked back and forth between each of us, the baguette and the sky. We both confirmed we saw it drop from the head height of the guy who walked by, because we were on either side of the sidewalk. We could plainly see that he had not taken his hands out of his pocket, so he didn't drop it. There were no windows until much further up, 2 floors above the doorway, and to either side of the doorway, we both saw it drop straight down, so it didn't come out of a window from a side. The little ledge with the anti-bird spikes was not wide enough for the baguette to be up there, plus it would have to be on top of the spikes, which I would have noticed because I was looking at it prior to the bread dropping. Yes, I was absolutely contemplating whether birds saw them the way we see barbed wire. Yes, I was completely sober. Even if I had somehow missed it, there was no wind or vibration, like someone closing a door hard to knock it down. After questioning our sanity and the quantum place in the universe for just a minute, we decided to touch the baguette. That shit was like a baguette-shaped rock. On a stale scale of 1 to 10, this one went to 11. It was also dry even though there had been rain earlier. So when/where did it come from? It was not when/where we were. We told our friends and they gave varying responses of, "Whoa, weird," but largely brushed it off. For months after the trip, we'd just be like, "You remember the baguette?" "Yeah." "Okay, just making sure," and then go back to whatever we were doing. Lowest steak glitch ever, but fuck if I don't think about that piece of bread all the time. Mostly I wonder about who was eating it. What was the other half of that glitch? I'm going back to that city with family in a couple weeks, and I want to go back and look for an explanation. Is that weird? Every night at 3 a.m., an unknown caller calls my phone. Finally, deciding to answer, I shout a brief, "What's your problem?" but quickly froze when I heard a distant echo of my own voice. We lost about 4 hours of time in 30 seconds. By Thrifty Gal 177. I'm not sure if this is considered a glitch, a time slip, or just delusion. But this is something that happened to me and my family that we can't explain. Summer of 2011, in the car was me, 19 at the time, my sister, dad, and stepmom. We were on our way to a campsite. We heard our family join us. My uncle and Nan, both arriving separately, called us saying they were setting off. Did we need anything from the shop and to let them know their arrival time? We were over halfway there. They would be arriving about 3 hours after us. We carried on driving, switching radio stations, and went through a tunnel. When we came out, the phone was ringing again. It was Nan asking where we were, kinda relieved that she got a hold of us. My Nan and uncle had already arrived at the campsite. My dad said, "Oh, so you're already there? Save us a picture then." And my Nan responded, "Where have you been if you're still on your way?" The conversation didn't make sense. My dad got frustrated and said, "What do you mean, where have you been? You just spoke to us." My Nan told us, "We've been calling you because we couldn't get a hold of you." My stepmom pointed to the time on the radio. About 4 hours had passed. 4 minutes had passed in 30 seconds. My dad ended the call with my Nan, and for a moment we were silent. My sister asked what was going on. My dad said that time must have changed when we had changed the radio station and our family was playing a dumb joke. Our phone showed time had passed. Again, silence. We arrived, briefly spoke about it with the family, and ignored it. We have spoken about it 2 to 3 times. My dad is either convinced that we went through a time vortex, got abducted, or we jokingly were drugged by our stepmom. She's a general practitioner. My stepmom says we must have got the time wrong, or at worst had a shared delusion or amnesia. Either way, we don't know what happened. "Be seated," the chief surgeon shouted. "You have missed a full week of classes." The girl tried not to faint as a second-year student dissected her mother's corpse. She had not been told her body would be donated to medical science. He wanted to drive me to a place that doesn't exist. By Creaky Tits. This week has been hectic. My 3 kids have the flu. Oldest was first, then my youngest 2 caught it. After a visit to the clinic, I was heading to the CVS down the street from our house for their prescriptions. I decided last minute to drop my kids off at home with their dad so they could get some rest, and I could go inside the store to pick up some Pedialyte. I consider our neighborhood to be safe. I've taken walks after dark and never felt afraid. Most of our neighbors are older folks who have lived there over a decade. When I pulled up to CVS, I parked on the side parallel to our street. It's dark around that side, but the entrance is right around the corner and well lit. There was a man staying outside. He was walking in front of my car, and I could hear him talking, but my music was kinda loud. I figured he was on his phone or something. No red flags yet. My husband called me as the man walked back towards the corner adjacent to the entrance. I got out of my car, still on the phone, telling my husband, yeah, kiddos have the flu, I'm picking up medicine at the CVS, etc. In a very pleasant voice, the man says to me, "Hey, I got a question for you. Do you know where Main Street is?" I, assuming he was asking for directions or the location or something, tell him I do. I'm still holding my phone to my ear. It's in a bright pink case, so I'm sure he could see it. Now this man is staying directly in front of me. There's a pillar and a trash can behind him. Around the corner is a propane cage and a red box against the store's wall. Getting past him would put me in arm's reach. Next, he asked for a ride there, to a homeless shelter. It's very cold outside and he doesn't want to freeze. I empathized with him, but I said I couldn't. I offered to buy him gloves or a blanket and asked if an employee in the store could assist in finding him a ride. Sweet baby Jesus, this guy's face immediately changed to pure rage. Then right back to pleasant. Well, you know what happens to homeless people stuck outside. You're going to help me. It's right down the street. I'm standing there unsure what to do. My husband's on the phone asking what's going on. I gently tell the man that I don't feel comfortable doing that, and that I have the flu. I don't. And my husband's on the phone with me. I don't care about the flu. Now he's getting more angry and not moving away from my route into the store. I didn't want to turn my back on him to go back to my car, which was several feet away in the dark. While this guy is glaring at me, I decided to quickly walk past him. I had my mask from the clinic in my jacket pocket, so I pulled that out and held it in front of me while I moved towards the trash can. He looked disgusted, but kept telling me I need to give him a ride. It's right down the street, he insisted. But I know where that street is, and it's not as close as he says. He tried to guilt me, and his words felt threatening, but he didn't actually threaten me verbally. Once I was around the corner, I rushed into the store straight to the pharmacy. My husband said he is calling the police. He heard the way the man was talking to me and said to stay in the store. My knees were shaking. I'm not usually the type to be so afraid when confronted. When I got to the pharmacy, I interrupted the pharmacist and a customer, apologizing, then told them what happened. The pharmacist sent the store manager out. A tall man with a long beard looked like he doesn't take crap from people. The police had already arrived. The man was told to leave, which he did momentarily. He came back inside the store, yelling obscenities and something about me. Now, the store manager has told him to get the fuck out. He's trespassing on the property. The cop came back to talk to me and told me she's arrested him many times. He's loud and likes to yell at people, but he isn't violent. The pharmacist had me hide behind the screen where they give the vaccines and left the half door to the pharmacy cracked open in case I need to get out of there. The cop also told me this guy's first and last name. So did the store manager. Is that even normal? The prescriptions are finally filled and I leave the store. The police park next to my car to keep an eye on me. Oh, and the man refused a ride from the cops to the shelter. Later, I looked him up. His name is unique, so he's easy to find online. Surprise, surprise, he has a long record spanning 3 states and several counties. Tons of public intoxication charges, DWIs, urinate in public, assault and battery, and indecent exposure. I also looked up the homeless shelter. Yeah, as I thought, there isn't one where he wanted me to take him, but that area is super sketchy. Earlier today, I went to the corner store across from CVS and told my friend, the overnight staff employee, what happened. She kicks him out of the store and calls the police every time she sees him before he yells at and threatens customers. But he always takes off before the police arrive. I know I could have handled that better. I was blindsided by his instant shift from pleasant to filled with rage. Big thank you to the pharmacy team who kept me safe and the store manager for confronting this creep. They didn't have to do all of that. I'm thankful for my husband recognizing I was unsafe in the situation over the phone. This man is still out there somewhere in my area. I remember the day that the immortality elixir was invented. They practically gave it away. Now that I sit here on the street, my body is filled with agony at the age of 187. I pray one day I'll have enough money to buy my death. I was almost kidnapped as a child. By No Knowledge 3945. Recently there was an Amber Alert and my daughter was asking what that beeping sound was all about. For those who don't know, an Amber Alert goes out when a child is reported missing. If you've received notifications, you know what I'm talking about. The alert will sometimes give information like the victim's appearance as well as the perpetrator, the location of the abduction, make and model of a vehicle. My phone started beeping one evening while helping my daughter clean her room. An Amber Alert. She asked me about it. I gave her a small rundown, and that was that. However, it triggered a childhood memory I had where I believe with all my heart that I was almost kidnapped when I was a kid. To be clear, this isn't a memory that was laying dormant in my subconscious, and this random Amber Alert and talking with my kid caused it to resurface in my mind. This incident is something I've pondered and thought about off and on for years now. I'm 41-year-old male, by the way. It's just been a while since I considered the factors and details of the experience, and this recent Amber Alert and talking with my daughter really caused me to pause and reflect on the incident itself once again, and here I am. As a parent, you worry about these things and do all you can to protect your children, especially when you personally experience something truly scary like this. The occasion happened when I was just a young kid. My guess is around 7 to 8 years old. I can't be sure, but I think that's a safe estimate, based on the fact that much of those early childhood memories aren't there anymore. I do remember my kindergarten experience, which I would have been 5 to 6, and also later grades. So this incident must have happened sometime after or around the age of 7 to 8. My parents took me to a neighboring city to do some shopping. We lived in a small rural town with not much on offer, so from time to time, we would go to this neighboring city about 45 minutes from where we were located. It just had more to offer. They would take me up there for school clothes shopping, out to eat because the restaurants were better, and because my mom was a crafter. She loved to make crafts. It was her thing. There were different craft stores and fabric stores she liked going to up there. This specific trip, we went to a fabric store up there, Joann's Fabrics to be exact. This was a pretty big store. As a little kid, I guess most every place has seemed big, but no kidding, this was a sizable store. My dad sat in the car while I went in with my mom. He did that a lot, sit in the car when there was a store he just didn't want to go in, so I guess I can't blame him there. I can't recall exactly what all my mom was looking for or trying to get in the store that day, but I do remember what section we were in, an area with a bunch of racks with various fabrics hanging. Imagine a clothing store with a circular rack with clothes hanging around them, and that's pretty much what it was like at the fabric store. Racks of hanging fabrics. I remember this area being slightly towards the beginning or entrance of the store. As my mom was looking through these racks, I began to wander, though not far, just enough to kind of look around myself. I was probably bored and started wandering around, is my guess. But I could still see my mom just up and over a few racks away, so it wasn't like I was on the other side of the store or anything. A random man approached me, and honestly, I can't remember at what direction he even came from. It's just like I was there by myself 1 minute, and the next I looked up and saw this guy. It was like he came in fast and out of nowhere. I quickly looked over to where my mom was. She had moved a few racks up and away, but I could still see her. There was a fair bit of distance between my mom and me at this point. So here I am, standing behind some rack of fabric with this older guy opposite me and the other side of this rack. He then speaks. "Hey, little boy, how you doing there?" I remained silent because this took me completely off guard. He said, "Where your folks at? Are you alone in here?" I stood still and quiet. "Come here, I got something to show you." At this point, he started advancing towards me, coming around the rack to where I was. I quickly started the other way, but he stopped and started coming around the other way as if to meet me in the middle. I was scared at this moment and became instantly aware that this man seemed dangerous and like he was trying to get a hold of me. "Come here," he barked. I jerked fast to the left, but he did the same. He had this wild look in his eyes. Whichever direction I went, he followed, but remember, there's a rack between us. God, I'm so thankful for that rack. After some back and forth movements from me and this man, I finally locked in on my mom and yelled, "Mom, help!" They would have thought I screamed bloody murder. It was so loud, but I just got my mom's attention. "What's wrong?" she asked. This startled the man. He looked over his shoulder in the direction of my gaze and confirmed, yep, that must be his mother. His demeanor completely changes, and it's as if everything is just fun and games and he was just messing around. And he said as much to my mom. "I was just messing around with him. No harm, ma'am." My mom came to where I was, and we reconnected. This guy just tips his hat at my mom and makes his way out of the store. I explained to my mom what just happened, that this guy was trying to get me. I was so upset and shook up. She told me I did the right thing by yelling and gained her attention. It was terrifying for sure, and I'm thankful something crazy didn't happen. Could I have been imagining things like maybe this guy was really just messing around? I very much think there was nefarious intentions. Why would a random older guy be perusing a fabric store? If he was there for some things like crafting or fabric, why promptly leave when confronted? I truly believe he was up to no good. Anyways, that's my story. I appreciate anyone for taking the time to listen. When I gained possession of my own voodoo doll, I always kept it locked in my house safe just in case. Even though I was 500 miles away at the time, the sudden agony of my skin inexplicably blackening and bubbling meant I was the first to know about the blaze tearing through my house. Am I being paranoid, or was I almost the victim of an elaborate mugging or kidnapping? By illiterateaardvark. I do some volunteering at a hospital 3 times a week that involves me reporting to the hospital at 5 a.m. I enjoy the volunteering. I've been doing it for almost 2 years, and I've never had any issues until last week. Last week, I was a bit early on my volunteer days, and I had about 30 minutes before I had to report in. I normally would have just waited in my car, but I had been pretty stressed about things in my personal life, so I thought I'd go for a little walk to burn a little steam and clear my head. After all, this is a pretty nice area, upscale West Los Angeles, so what could go wrong? It was 4:30 a.m., so naturally the streets are all quiet, but it seems pretty peaceful. But then up ahead, I see somebody walking in my direction. Kinda odd, I guess, but I didn't think too much of it. Him being out here at this hour isn't inherently suspicious, after all. Does being out here at this hour automatically make me suspicious too? So I kept walking. We made quick eye contact when we crossed paths, and suddenly I got a very bad feeling about this man. I can't explain it other than instant. Sometimes you just have a bad gut feeling about someone, you know? That's what I felt when I passed this man, and I immediately went on high alert and made sure he wasn't going to approach me from behind or something. Very soon after walking by this man, I'm talking like 15 to 20 seconds, I passed by one of the many parked cars on the streets. This is Los Angeles, so there's lots of parked cars on the side of main streets. Except this parked car is different. There is a man sitting at the wheel, and this man waves at me and beckons me over. Again, pretty darn creepy, but not inherently worth freaking out over. But as I keep walking, I realize that while the car was parked, it wasn't off. It was just simply in park. Because the car started driving in the same direction I was walking, and its driver at a pace essentially matching my walking speed. At this point, I had enough, and my brain is saying nope. So I immediately turn around and start speed walking back in the direction that I came from. Then I saw something that, in the moment, scared the fuck out of me. That first man that I had encountered walking the other direction, which was now probably like 40 seconds ago, was now standing pretty close to me. Like, way, way closer than someone who had been walking in the other direction should be. And then he makes eye contact with me. And then he starts walking in my direction. I am incredibly suspicious and more than a bit nervous at this point. So because it's pretty dark out, I decide to play a hunch. My car keys fold out in a manner very similar to a switchblade. So I immediately pull it out, press the button to make the key fold out, and I stare at him for a second. I believe he was caught off guard because he stopped walking for a second. Well, that second was all I needed. I immediately took off running at top speed, crossing the street. We are talking a Los Angeles main street with 6 lanes and a medium divider. And I kept running down the street. I'm no Olympian, but I was on the cross-country team at D2 college and still run multiple times a week. So I'm pretty confident that I can outrun the average person to run into by a comfortable margin. Still, I didn't want to take any chances and ran all the way back to the hospital. So, what do you guys think? I'm not crazy, right? I'm not necessarily saying that I was going to be the next prominent murder victim or a kidnap victim, but there was definitely something going on here, right? In lieu of the death penalty, I was to be sentenced to an experimental drug trial, through which I would be subjected to 1 hour of eternity. I have spent the last 10 billion years staring at the same 4 walls, begging for death, but unable to die, and my sentence has not even begun. The Kidnapper in the Woods at a Park by Killian099. It was a warm summer day over the weekend, and my brother and my sister and I decided to go to the park with our 2 best friends. The park was closer to where we lived, and it was in an isolated area surrounded by woods. Parents would sit on the picnic tables not too far from the playground while they watched their kids play. We meet our friends there and we played on the playground, and then we played tag with some of the other kids. While everyone else was playing on the playground, my friend and I wanted to go explore the woods. We didn't ask our parents first because we thought it would be okay. We started hiking and we discovered a stream. My friend and I love science, rocks, and minerals, so we started to search for cool rocks. We continued exploring until we thought we heard something or someone walking into the woods because the leaves were crunching. We thought it was an animal, so we looked around, but we didn't see anything or anyone, so we continued our exploring. As we made it further into the woods, I got an uncomfortable feeling that someone was watching us, so I asked if we could go back to the playground. My friend said sure because our parents were worried if they didn't see us. We hiked back and continued playing on the playground. We were swinging on the swings and we saw a little boy wander off into the woods to explore. We noticed a car parked on the other side of the woods and a guy came out from behind a tree and closer to the little boy. It looked like the guy was trying to lure this little boy to come with him. The boy started to go with him, and the guy tried to grab him, but just then his parents noticed and called for him to come back. The guy that wanted to kidnap him took off running into the woods and drove away quickly. One of his parents got a picture of the kidnapper, though. My friend and I were freaked out because we were in that same spot as the guy. He could have been hiding behind a tree watching us the whole time or took off with one of us running. Thank goodness we both were okay and one of my parents noticed and saved the boy from being kidnapped. After that, my family and friends all went home. We decided to never go back to that park ever again. The police were called and I'm not sure if they ever found that person. I always snort with laughter whenever people mentioned a sleep paralysis demon, as I had suffered from the condition for years with no ill effects. I couldn't even open my mouth to scream as the flames consumed my bedding, and I could feel the anguishing pain as my organs cooked inside my body. My Walk That Me and My Dad Don't Talk About by the History Teacher 1. It was late August 2011. I was 11 at the time, and I was staying at my dad's house for the weekend. My dad is a very outdoorsy man. He likes nature and making us go on long hikes. We also lived the opposite of some woods, so every now and again, my brother, my father, and I would take our 3 dogs there: Riggington, Elfie, and Rip. This was summer holiday time, so I could stay up to whatever time I wanted. And my dad totally took advantage of that, because he liked to go on late night walks with the dogs, most of the time on his own, but sometimes with my brother. Like I said before, I was 11, so I still believed hugely in ghosts and the paranormal, so every time he asked me to go on these walks, I'd stay away, because I was scared of going into the woods late at night. The time I finally plucked up the courage to go, my dad was more than happy. We went out the door and we started talking. We had just entered the woods when we heard a whistle. I asked, "Do you hear that?" But he said not to worry, but his face said otherwise. At this point, I was terrified. I tried to make him go back, but he is a very stubborn man. We were about 3 minutes into the walk when we saw a man sitting on one of those benches near the park. He looked to be in his late 60s, white hair, burgundy suit, a dark wood cane, and a drink of something. When we passed him, we each said our hellos, but he was dead silent. His eyes wide open and pale face scared the living hell out of me. We picked up the pace, but then we heard the whistling again. It was louder this time. He moved closer, sitting on the bench near to us, and I told my dad. Then we turned around to go back. I don't really remember much after that because I pushed away the memories after all these years, but as we were walking, we saw a poster on a pole. I was a curious kid and always very nosy, so I read it. Martin Jones, age 67, height 5'5", gone missing around 10 p.m., Saturday, July 9th. It was the same man. I beckoned my dad over, but he stopped, eyes wide open, shouted, "Get away from my son." I turned around, and there he was, just about to grab me, when my dad came over and pushed him away. We ran, called the authorities, but they said they never heard of the man, and at that point, we never went into those woods again. Searching through the wreckage of another ruined city, I finally got lucky when I found mounds of enough warm white rice to starve off starvation for another day. Shoving a handful into my mouth, I felt the little grains wither and squirm against my tongue, but I told myself it was just my imagination, as I swallowed hard and took another bite. A Stranger Tries to Steal My Dog and Other Nightmares Before Christmas by NadjaColette. This happened before Christmas of 2019, when I, female, was 26, and it sticks with me to this day. I've thought about sharing this many times, but I've never been sure if it's scary enough. I guess you'll decide. My then boyfriend, now husband, and I decided to meet for dinner at a Christmas market here in Switzerland. He would pick up our dog from our doggy daycare, and I would get there after work. Some things that are good to know. At that point, we had our dog for about a year. He's called Bean. He's a medium-sized dog, and before he came to Switzerland, he was a street dog in Italy. He was about 2.5 years old at the time, and he loved and still loves to get all the attention he can get. Also, Christmas markets are incredibly busy here, especially after work. People will meet there with friends to eat dinner and drink mulled wine. When we got to the Christmas market, we realized that it was way too busy to walk through with a dog, and I sent my boyfriend off to get my favorite street food, Mellowalk. I waited at the edge of the market with Bean. Bean likes to greet everyone who looks at him, and by that point I gotten used to talking with strangers because my dog wanted to meet them. So I wasn't too concerned at first when a dude came up to me. Full transparency, I don't remember word for word what was said. I'm not even sure what language this happened in. I do remember that Bean happily greeted this guy, trying to stand up against him, licking his hands. The guy asked what his name is and what breed he is. I told him that his name was Bean and he's a pincer mix. That's when the situation started to turn. The man insisted that he must be a Bernese. How could I say he's a pincer? All of a sudden, he switched. There's no better word to explain it. He grabbed Bean's leash and said, "I'll go now," and just tried to walk off with my dog. Thankfully, I had a firm grip on his leash and was incredibly confused and flustered and just stammered that he can't take my dog. He got increasingly more angry every second I didn't let go of the leash. I loudly told him to leave me alone, and Bean started to bark at the man. I never seen Bean this angry and scared at the same time, and thankfully the man let go of the leash and slipped into the crowd. I was left standing there, dumbfounded mess with a mess of a dog. Bean was barking and shaking, so I knelt down to calm him down, holding him and talking to him. My boyfriend was still somewhere in the crowd, waiting for our food. After a while, a woman walked up to me and told me not to put my heel to the floor, as she had just seen someone put a firecracker there. I don't know the name for this type of firecracker. They are small, like 1/4 inch, and usually thrown at the floor to make a little boom sound on impact. Someone put them under the heel of my shoe so it would explode when I put my heel down to get up. Now, I don't know what's worse. Was it the same guy that tried to steal Bean, or was it someone else who saw a distressed dog and thought, "Wow, let's scare that dog a lot more"? I think that the worst thing for me was that apart from the woman who warned me, no one helped me when I was harassed by a weird guy, even though I loudly told him to go away, and there were other people standing very close just watching. Bean was the only one who scared the guy off in the end. Thankfully, the events of that evening had no lasting impact on Bean. He still loves to greet strangers. I still remember it and don't think I will ever forget. After an hour-long conversation, the psychologist told me that she still didn't believe in ghosts and it was time for her to have lunch with her son. First, I didn't want to traumatize her, but seeing no other option, I took her to the next room where her son had killed her earlier. And now the stories have come to an end. If you're still awake, well, I hope you fall asleep shortly. And the sounds that you're hearing in the background are going to take center stage for no more than 30 minutes to help you fall asleep or stay asleep. But if you are awake and want to hear more stories, I do have playlists for that as well. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.